Here we are at the Academy Sports and Outdoors Rigs and Techniques, the CCA workbench. We're going to talk to Mike Holliday a little bit about snook fishing.
Catching a few these days?
We're going to start with my favorite type of fishing because you wanted to start with that. We're going to start with the topwater plugs.
Yeah.
What time of year do you like to use those things?
So you can use them all year,
right.
Particularly in the warm weather, but it all depends. Spring and summer and fall, are the best times, particularly when the mullet are running. So we're getting a mullet run right now. We get one in the spring, we get it in the fall.
Right.
And that's where you want to look at your plugs. So in the fall, we have a lot of finger mullet.
Right.
So you'll go to a smaller profile plug. As we get to spring, the mullet tend to be a lot larger. So you want to try and use the larger and even the magnum size ones.
Right.
Another thing you want to do is you want to listen to the sound, to the rattle of them. You want more of a higher pitched rattle for the snook and a lower pitched rattle for trout.
Oh,
they seem to just like that a lot better.
What about those prop ones?
So that's sort of where the sound goes.
I gotcha.
So when you throw with topwater the walk the dog style, it walks with a clack, 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 clack sound.
Right.
And when you go to these prop baits, which are another great topwater to throw both spring and fall, they make like a zit or a snapping type sound.
Yeah.
Have you ever been out on the water when you see a school of mullet go by and they kind of snap next to you?
We call it a flick.
So the plug's designed to make that sound. And the way you fish them is you throw them out, you let the ripples go away from them, and then you just pop it twice, just quick. Zit, zit, let it sit.
Yeah.
Zit, zit, let it sit. Do it all the way back to the boat. Don't pull the lure out until it's right at the rod tip, because a lot of times the fish will dog it and eat right at the boat.
They'll follow it all the way up.
Exactly. And they love that sound.
And they love to crush it right when it stops, too.
And soak you,
yeah.
Scare you. A lot of guys miss it. A lot of guys will pull it
The
out.
last time I went, I had one knock 6 feet straight up in the air, and I giggled for 30 minutes afterwards.
That's the best part.
Didn't even hook it,
right?
But it went 6 feet straight up in the air. Made me laugh and laugh.
So, and then lastly, you have the poppers.
Right.
What's nice about these is they're super easy. Pop, pop, let it sit. Pop, pop, let it sit. Pop, and not like bass fishing when you let it sit a long time. That cadence, pop, pop, let it sit. Pop, pop, let it sit. Pop, pop, let it sit. Work it all the way back.
Yeah, not a long time.
And they'll
like
throw
I
that splash. The strike always comes when the lure's sitting.
Right. Well, next we got some flare hawk jigs. Every time you go into any store, a lot of guys are wanting you to throw these flare hawk jigs. What's the best lure for snook? It's a flare hawk jig.
The flare hawks have probably caught more snook than all the other lures on the market combined.
Right.
This is an R&R flare hawk.
Mm-hmm.
They come in a bunch of different colors. The two main colors that people throw are either chartreuse or red and white.
Right.
Okay, and the way you figure that out, you go to the bridge. Most guys throw them at night.
Right.
You can throw them on windy days in really dirty, milky water, but most people fish them at night. You fish them around the bridges, you fish them around the inlets where there's a lot of moving water, and they just create a big silhouette. Mm-hmm. They don't really look like any certain fish, but they look like a big bait fish.
That's for sure.
Water. You don't jig them like a normal jig. You throw them out, you just reel them slow and steady, and then the bite comes and about takes the rod out of your hands. It's such a hard thump.
So you don't sweep the rod or
anything? Don't do anything, just real slow. And the thing about the jig, so you pull up on the bridge, shine a flashlight in the water and look at the water. Mm-hmm. If the water's super clear, like when you get around the inlets,
right.
Then you throw red and white. If the water is super dirty, then you throw chartreuse. If there's a big school of bunker around, pink's the color. Kind of turns, like you said, like a gray color at night.
Well, when the bunker get all together in a big pile, their bellies get all pink.
And then this is a great color when the pilchards are around, particularly during the daytime on a windy day in very dirty water. This is a great color. Tarpon will eat these really well too.
And but you're mostly throwing those at night around bridges and a bunch of good current.
Pretty much.
Is it better if there's the tide? I mean, is it slack tide when you get the bite?
It's almost always a moving tide, and you're almost always throwing up a shadow line. You're throwing into the light part and bringing it to the shadow. The fish will sit in the shadow, and right when it hits that edge, you want to try and time it and draw it along.
So you're gonna throw these jigs up current usually?
You do.
And then let them come back to you?
That's correct. And a lot of times you'll throw it and you'll count it down. You'll count 1001, 1002, 1003, 1004, and then you reel back slowly. And if you keep hitting bottom, that's okay. If you start getting snagged, then the next cast you count to 3.
I got you.
And that's the way you get just above the bottom.
But that's where you want it.
Fish are going to be on the bottom.
Like within a foot or?
within a foot. It's a good number.
I got you. Now, last but not least, we got one of the the Jupiter rig here. Let's talk a little bit about that. Why you want to use the Jupiter rig and how you use that.
This is a really good inlet rig. If you're going to live bait fish around the inlets, get a lot of current. If you fish the bait without any weight, it can swim up and down. For the most part, you may be at 8 or 10 or 12 feet deep water around the inlet, and the fish are going to lay on the bottom. So having your bait go by on the surface isn't going to help you at all.
That keeps it down by the...
So you want to keep it down. But what they do, and this was designed in Jupiter and Palm Beach County, they put a swivel on each end.
Right.
With a sinker in the middle. And it's different than the average slip sinker rig, which wouldn't have this swivel here. The problem with that is when you cast, the sinker moves up your line.
Right.
This way it can only move up your line about 18 inches.
Keeps everything
and it'll keep
close
it on
to
the
the bottom.
Exactly. And you can move your bait just a little bit, but you don't have this big bow in your line out here with the bait swimming.
Which would happen if you had a whole lot of current.
That's correct. And a lot of times this will just kind of roll down the edge of the rocks.
Right.
You can cast parallel to the rocks and it just crawls down for you.
Well, we've crawled our way right out of time.
That's okay.
I really appreciate it. So, hey, there was a lot of good stuff right there.
Yeah, there was.
We covered it from the top to the bottom.
Yes,
There's
you
a
did.
proud
Everything
poppy
in
over
between.
here. Yes, we did.
I was wanting
He's
over
like-
there so bad.
He literally was looking
killing
at
me.
you guys
He's
like
going, I have more
this.
questions. I have more questions.
You do.